Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. As always, have with me my co-host and Hall of Famer. He's got like a light coat on tonight. I don't know why. The weather is so
Well,
nice.
take a look.
Is that a
Take
Wimbledon
here.
warm up?
Wait a minute. I'll stand back a little further. That didn't work. This is my Roland Garros jacket.
Roland Garros. I said Wimbledon. That's the dumbest thing I could have said, knowing that we're in Roland Garros. So
And you know what, David? It's 1990 that I got this, and I've had incredible use out of it ever since.
1990, the year Andres Gomez upset my guy Andre.
Yeah, I know.
Agassi.
You don't like being reminded of that year. I can still see a couple of the Nike guys as we went into the grounds telling us, big day for Andre. They were convinced, and who could blame them? It looked like he was ready.
Yeah. Well, Andres Gomez had other plans. But anyway, let's talk about the current French Open that's going on right now. We are now in the quarterfinal stages. We're recording this on a Monday night in the States. Steve and I will get to the quarters, but just a few snippets I want to address with you, Steve, before we get into, most, if not all, those matchups. We talk about the trio on the women's side of Rybakina, Swiatek, and Sabalenka. Unfortunately, one of those had to withdraw because of an illness. It would have been nice to see the three of them battle it out. Rybakina was unable to even play. She went out for a warm-up. It was like a 10-minute warm-up, but she didn't even go on court for the match. Too bad for her.
That must have been, the fever must have been severe, David, because think about it. And don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking her. I'm sure she knew exactly what she was doing, and it must have been deeply disappointing. But we've seen players play when they're a little sick. She obviously was very sick because you just wouldn't do something like that. She'd been playing great on the clay. She was one of the, granted, she was the third favorite, but still, she was in a very positive frame of mind, playing well. It's for hopefully, I got to believe that by Wimbledon, she'll be in good shape again and she'll put this behind her. But that doesn't happen very often during slams, so I felt badly for her.
Yeah, it had to be obviously really bad for her not to be able to compete. And again, she's been on a roll, and she actually had a pretty good clay court warm-up season coming into the event. So had to be crushing for her, but hopefully she'll bounce back soon. Interesting tweet by Mr. Patrick McEnroe at the round of 16 for the men, Steve. Not one player from a country which hosts any of the four majors. You had one from Asia, you had 11 from Europe, but not from a host country, and 4 from South America.
Yeah.
That's an interesting stat.
Yeah, it is. It's just the nature of the game. I mean, that it'll change. And obviously the American men are they're doing very well, but this has never been the land of great fortune for particularly American men. So no shock on that count, but that's a very interesting fact that Patrick brought forward.
And I do want to talk about a really competitive third round match. And I know Francis he's probably still sleepless thinking about that 4th set. Sasha Zverev, who again, so great to see him back. He was playing well last year in Roland Garros, had that horrible ankle injury against Rafa. He beat Francis in a tight 4 sets. That 4th set, Francis had chances. He should be playing that 5th set, like he said in the press conference.
Well, interesting, because you and I should tell our listeners, we had a little exchange of texts, as we often will, and sometimes we'll make predictions, and you called it correctly. You had it in Zverev in 4. I said, I think Zverev in 5. So when Francis went up 5-3 in the 4th, I thought I might have bragging rights, but it didn't happen. And I think Zverev was very wise to make the concerted effort to come back and salvage that set. It could have gotten very dangerous in a 5th, and he didn't want to have to play that extra set. But tough for Francis, who lost a couple of tie breaks there, and it really conceivably could have been his match if he played the big points just a little better.
And another American, Taylor Fritz, who he started out really good on the clay court season. Filtered out a little bit in the bigger events, but it's a long, prep season to Roland Garros. He had a tough loss to Cerundolo. That was a good match, but I know Taylor would have loved to get through that one as well.
Well, he won the first set and then had a chance 1 point away from taking it to a fifth. And there were chances in those second and third sets. He could have won just about all, he could have won all the sets. But Cerundolo is a terrific clay court player, as he showed in his next match, which I know we'll get to, against Holger Rune today.
On the female side, an American that we've discussed quite a bit, Coco Gauff. I wouldn't say she's quietly advancing. I wouldn't say that, but she now is into the quarters. She faces Iga Swiatek. We'll get into that in a couple minutes, but it was an interesting match that she played a couple rounds ago. Coco was the 19-year-old. Her opponent was the 16-year-old. Coco lost the first set, but came back, showed her experience and maturity. She wound up winning that match 6-7, 6-1, 6-1. A lot of times you don't get to say Coco's the more experienced player.
That's true. No, she didn't want to lose that match. Psychologically, that would have been devastating. What's interesting now, though, is that she's back in the quarters, as you mentioned. Got to play Swiatek, who beat her in the final last year. I'm not optimistic about her chances. I hope Coco can make an impression, make it tighter than a year ago. But she's playing by far and away the best clay court player in the world, and Swiatek is going for a third title in a 4-year span here. So she's going to be very hard to beat, not only against Coco, but conceivably in the last 2 rounds after that.
I looked briefly, and I won't put you on the spot, but I looked briefly, and I could have read it wrong, so don't quote me on it. But head-to-head, 6-0 Swiatek. So
yeah. No, that's another thing. She just hasn't been able to beat her anywhere. But it would seem to me this would be her, as well as Coco's played here at Roland Garros the last 2 years, and it is her only major final. It's not the right court for her to play Iga. She's got a better shot against Iga on a hard court, or perhaps on grass. I just think but here she's got her work cut out for her. And I think she's got to be pleased at least that she's upheld her seeding, and it's not her fault that she got drawn against Iga in the quarters this time instead of the finals. She's had a decent tournament, and now she can just go out and give it her best. But I think Swiatek is she has too many resources from the backcourt for Coco, and I got to believe she's in control. She'll control the outcome of that contest.
Anything you want to bring up that I have not brought up before we get into the quarterfinal matchups?
No, I think you've done it.
All right, let's go into these, because we got some unbelievable matches. We'll start on the men's side. We got top seed Carlos Alcaraz. He's facing Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now, I thought Musetti was going to give Carlos a little bit more of a test than he did, and I know everybody is just eyeballing that Alcaraz Djokovic semifinal, but Stefanos Tsitsipas is playing well. Steve, what's the percentage Tsitsipas wins this match?
I think very low, to tell you the truth. You're talking about winning the match.
Yeah.
That's a different story from making it competitive and at least winning
the match. Winning the match.
I give him about 25% chance.
I was going to say around similar number, 25, 30%.
I mean, because I have respect for the fact, you have to respect Stefanos was runner-up to Novak 2 years ago and had a great run to the final.
Well.
Yeah, beat Medvedev and he beat Zverev and then had 2 sets to love against Novak. And then the year before, he lost to Novak in a 5-set semifinal. So he's had a really good record here. Clay is demonstrably his best surface so far. He's great on them all. He's had terrific hard court results, finals of the Australian this year. But all in all, I think his best tennis has been played on clay. So that's all in his favor. But he's 0-4 against Carlos. And that includes 2 clay court losses, the quarters of Barcelona last year, the finals of Barcelona this year. He got a set last year. He didn't this year. I feel like he'll like the fact that it's best of 5, that he could play his way into this match. He trusts his endurance, and he does hang in there well in long 5-set matches. But I just feel like he's just, I don't know in the end that he can really, I don't know how he combats that firepower from Carlos. I just feel like he's going to be doing a lot of scrambling, and he's going to have to be very cagey out there to break up Carlos's rhythm. Don't you think?
Well, so here's the thing. Well, the day the draw came out, everyone eyed where Carlos was and where Novak was in the draw, right? You're saying, oh, maybe they could meet in the final, but unfortunately, if they do meet, it'll be in the semi,
Yeah,
which we'll talk about later as far as potential of the final. But everyone's been eyeballing this matchup, and I feel like in sports, a lot of times when people eyeball a matchup, sometimes it doesn't come to fruition, right?
true,
I'm
true.
with you. Alcaraz is the favorite. I'm also with you in that you got to give Steph credit. He was up 2-11 against Novak in the final just a couple of years ago. I don't think Tsitsipas will come in intimidated at all. Alcaraz in a tight 4-setter.
Could be, but I have to say I have slight disagreement there. I think he is a little intimidated, and I think what he's going to need to do is remove those layers of doubt by starting strong in that match.
Yes.
Playing a really good first set, win or lose. It's okay to lose it, but don't lose it decisively. Don't lose it with sort of a lack of conviction in what he wants to do out there. And then I think he can erase those doubts. But I feel like going out there, he has them. He'll try to fight them, but it's very hard when you're 0-4 against somebody, and he has those memories going back to the U.S. Open a couple of years back when he lost in a terrific 5-setter that was almost Carlos's announcement of greatness that day on the stadium court at Flushing Meadows. So I feel like that's hard for him. Just like he has those doubts against Novak with 10 wins in a row against him. It's tough when you've been drubbed by people over and over again, try to come up with the right game plan and nothing works. But his series with Carlos is not nearly as long and decisive as the one with Novak. That's a lot more wins in a row. Here, at least, okay, 4 is a relatively small sample, but they're very clear in the eye of his mind.
You mentioned first set, and I use this stat all the time with friends and yourself. I know I've used it as well. When you mentioned the first set, I'm thinking to myself, okay, and again, you measure yourself against the very, very best players in the world. If you don't win that first set, you then need to win 3 of the next 4 sets to win the match. And how difficult. You don't want to think about that as a player, right? Because if you lose the first set, you're like, oh my God, this is over. But it just goes to show you how crucial that first set is, that if you don't win it, you now have to win 3 out of 4 sets against these guys. And it's so difficult.
Yeah. And David, you look at, I've studied this. I've looked at this, man. I would really enjoy looking at the records of the players that they have after winning the first set. And the numbers are staggering. And this is combined for best of 3 and best of 5. But most of the great players are in the range of 90% and up, or at least high 80s and up after winning the first set.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me.
And Stefanos is well aware of that.
Right. I mean, like, think about it. When Rafa was healthy and he's, crazy on the surface, good luck. If you didn't win the first set, you're going to win 3 out of 4 sets and him again and Roland Garros. No way.
Yeah. No, right, very tough. I mean, listen, in fairness, he could work. It can change if you play a good, let's say he played a very good first set and lost it in a tiebreak and then came back and won the second. Okay. He's got some encouragement out of the first, he wins the second, and now he says it's a brand new match, best of 3. Right. But best case scenario for him is he wants to get on the board, catch Carlos off guard in that first set, and give himself a lead to play with.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. I know tennis fans, they all want this Alcaraz Djokovic match, but tune in for Alcaraz Tsitsipas, because I think there's going to be something good to watch. Going to be a lot of good tennis in that match. They're both playing at a high level. Let's talk about Djokovic, right? He plays Marin Khachanov, who's played well. I do want to go back to early in the tournament just because there's so much discussion that we've had over previous episodes and tiebreakers. And I don't know, Steve, maybe someone has a better tiebreak record than Novak. That to me is irrelevant. If you need someone to win a tiebreak, for me, it's Novak Djokovic. And then I believe the first 4 tiebreakers he played, he had 0 unforced errors. Let me say that again. It's not that he didn't lose points in those tiebreakers. He lost points in those tiebreakers, but he had 0 unforced errors in the first 4 tiebreakers he played. That's incredible.
Yeah, and listen, he did it while still playing with tremendous controlled aggression. And it was particularly important in the match against Davidovich Fokina when, the first 2 sets both went to tiebreaks. The others were not as tense. These were critical because the first set alone lasted almost an hour and a half. He really needed that set. And Fucsovics took him to a first set tiebreaker. That was another one that was important. But yeah, he managed. He doesn't just wait for errors.
No,
he doesn't just hope it's going to be given to him, but he gives nothing away. And that's very discouraging. For the other guys, that's very discouraging when they see he's in the so-called lockdown mode. Then they start pressing a little bit, by the way.
We've said it all the time. He doesn't miss easy to neutral balls. He's, like you said, controlled aggression, a lot of times at big targets, and then he just makes your opponent feel that they have to come up with something bigger than what they're accustomed to, and that's what forces the error. It's an easy equation, Steve. It's just really, really hard to execute, but Novak does it so well.
But also, it's just the way he responds to pressure, like against Davidovich Fokina. In the second set tie, well, first of all, in the first set tiebreak, Djokovic is down 3-1 and he comes back and wins it. Second one, he's up 4-1 double mini break, looking like he's got it complete control of it. And the Spaniard came back and played 4 magnificent points in a row to take a 5-4 lead. Novak serving at 4-5, and then he runs off 3 points in a row and ends it. So it's even when you think you have them, and so those two tiebreakers were just so hard fought, and the Spaniard couldn't have played any better, but Novak had the answers.
I'm trying to give Khachanov a chance here, and I go back to certain matches that he played Rafa very tough on, but they were on hard courts. He played him very hard in the U.S. Open. I think a 3rd round match, maybe it was in 18.
He did.
He played him tough in Indian Wells, like I think the following year, but this is on clay, and I just don't know if he can penetrate the ball as hard as he can do on hard courts and dictate like he can try to do on hard court versus Novak. I'm saying Novak in 3. I'd be surprised if it goes 4, Steve.
I would too. I've been torn, but right now I'm thinking 3. Well, look, I hear you about the Rafa man. I remember those matches, and he played some great tennis against Rafa, but no knock on Rafa. This matchup, I think, is just tougher for Khachanov versus Novak for many reasons, but mainly just the nature of the rallies and Novak's flatter ball hitting than Rafa. So he can sort of deal, I think, with Khachanov's power more successfully than Rafa did at times on hard courts. You know, he split the first 2, Khachanov, with Djokovic. He won the second match in their series. Djokovic has won 7 in a row since, at the cost of 1 set. So I think he enjoys playing him. He sees the challenge. He respects him. He sees him as a frontline player. And he also knows that Khachanov was in the semis of the US Open, losing to Ruud in the semis, and then in the semis of Australia to start this year, losing to Tsitsipas. So these last 2 majors has been in the semis. Now here he is back in the quarters. So Djokovic respects that. On the other hand, he knows how to play him. He's so familiar with him that I think he goes out there comfortable in his mind that if he executes well, it's his match to win.
All right, next quarter, and the next quarter is we'll pronounce these good. We'll go Holger Rune versus Casper Ruud. Rune had a spectacular match today. There was some controversy. Steve, I'll let you address it, but Rune and Ruud did not have a good clay court season coming up. Obviously, last year he made the finals of this event, losing to Rafa. Rune has been playing well, and he's damn good. I'll say, you could address the match that happened today with Cirindola, and 2, how much will he have left after playing a really, really long 5-setter against Casper?
Good point. At his age, with the day off, he should be okay. I hope so. It's about 3 hours and 59 minutes was the time that I saw for the match.
Not at our ages. We wouldn't rebound as well as him.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. No, but anyway, yeah, that's a question. But with a day off of the major, as opposed to you play a long 3-setter at a Masters 1000, come back the next day, maybe it's more of a question. So I think he'll probably recover pretty well. He finally beat Ruud the last time they met on the clay, just a few weeks back, but he was down a set in 4-2. It was a nice comeback. Ruud was dominating that match and got a little tight, and then Rune took full advantage of it and came back to get his first win over him. This one I see is, in last year they played in the quarters here, and Ruud was victorious. So I just see this one being very, very close. What I think that could help Ruud in the end, the Norwegian, is that if he can get if he can get Holger into a long contest, make sure to, to make it a strenuous contest, he probably will be fresher. I mean, I don't think Holger wants to get in another 5-setter back to back like that. So that'll be interesting. I don't have a strong feel on that match, except that I do think it will go long.
Yeah, I've said to myself it was going to be but if Rune did not go 5 sets today, I was going to give Rune the chance as a favorite in that match. But because of what happened today, it's a pick 'em for me. And like you said, if it gets into a lengthy, strong, physical type of match, it's going to be in Casper Ruud's advantage just because of the energy that Holger had to expand today. So we'll see. And then the last quarter is Sasha Zverev versus Etcheverry. And I like the Etcheverry story because you know me, I like the challenger tour type players. He's been playing challenger events for a while now. He's been doing well. His draw has been pretty nice. Obviously, with Medvedev losing early, Medvedev should be in this bottom quarter, which is not. I'm also happy for Sasha in that seeing him back in the quarters of French Open after last year. I give Sasha the strong edge in that one, but it's good to see both those guys playing.
Yeah, I agree. Sasha's only lost 1 set, and that was to Francis in that fascinating tussle they had the other day. Today, he won his straight over Dimitrov to reach the quarters, and he won the first set, was down 4-2 in the second, won 7 games in a row, and then eventually came through in straight. Yeah, I agree with you. I think in his current form, with his confidence level up after the win of Dimitrov, that he could drop a set. I guess I would go for him in 4 sets. Etcheverry's a very good clay court player, beaten a couple of seeds. The draw did open up, but he's beaten some good players, including his latest one over Nishioka. So I respect the way he's playing, and but I think Zverev 3 or 4, but I'm going to go for 4 sets.
All right. So before we get to a few of the matches on the women's side, the next time we record is going to be after the tournament, right? We're going to do it next Monday. We'll have a champion. So I'll ask you, you do not have to answer it, but if we do get the Alcaraz Djokovic semi, are you willing to analyze that match a little bit for listeners, or do you want to just kind of sit back and
no,
let's
I'm
see if it
happens? Analyze it. Again, I think anybody who made a strong prediction for either one of them is going to be very nervous that entire match, because if they're both in the form that we've seen them in, that's potentially a 5-set blockbuster. And it really comes down to the fact that you got Novak, who's a 2-time champion at Roland Garros, 14 straight quarters there, all his experience, going for his 23rd major. And then Carlos, who's going for his 2nd major in a row and starting to believe that he's the best player in the world, that he's earned that #1 ranking and that he can win on anything. And I just feel like we don't have a lot to go on. We have the one match they played on clay last year. That doesn't tell us much. It went to the tiebreaker in the 3rd. They both
played over 3 hours?
Yeah, Carlos won it after having beaten Rafa in the same tournament in Spain. And I feel like all credit to him. He showed that he's capable of beating him for sure. He did it. But it's not like he has a 4-0 record against him or anything. And it's not like Djokovic didn't have his chances to win that match as well. So I just feel like they'll both go in confident. It's Djokovic's great major tournament experience could help him in the end. I feel like, oddly, I have a weird feeling that if it goes longer, it will favor Novak, because Carlos exerts so much energy and exuberance out there, and he battles so hard for every point. But he's got amazing energy, and I don't think he's going to fade if it goes to a 5th set. But somehow I just feel like that's where the Djokovic experience might pull him through if it comes down to that. But I just feel like you can make a good case for a 4-set scenario for either one of them too. That either one gets off to a good start. Whoever wins that 1st set maybe goes on to win in 4. I'd be more than willing to give you a prediction, but I just feel like it's going in. It's a flip of the coin.
And I'll tell you, their opponent hopes they play for 6.5 hours. It's one of those maybe Australian Open finals that Novak played Rafa when it went forever. Because
the good news is that, providing, David, that they win their quarterfinals tomorrow, as we expect them to do, that both Carlos and Novak will at least have had 2 days off going into their semi.
Right, but they only have, but then they only got the one after the semi, right?
Oh, true, but I'm saying they'll have plenty of energy for that one, and the one is very helpful. Even if they went 5 hours, it's still extremely helpful to have a day off, and they might go 5 hours. It wouldn't shock me.
Makes me tired just thinking about it. All right, on the ladies' side.
And by the way, just a quick comment on that. You have to feel a little badly for both of them. If it hadn't been for Medvedev against the odds winning Rome to get the number 2 seeding, these two could have met in the final, because what's going to make it tough is it's going to feel like a final to both of them. It's going to feel that way. And yet whoever wins is going to have to get back up, not only recover physically, but psychologically get themselves prepared for one more match to take the title. Reminds me a little bit of when Novak and Rafa met.
That's what I was just going to say. Novak and Rafa.
Not even last year, which was a quarter, but 2 years ago, which was a semi. Yeah. Novak wins the semi and had to come back and play that match against Stefanos. And I think that may have been partially responsible for the slow start that he had in going down 2 sets. In addition to Tsitsipas playing beautifully, is that Novak was still feeling the effects, both physically and emotionally, from the Rafa semifinal contest. Something similar could happen here, because they're going to have to give so much to get past each other on Friday.
I do want to talk about a few matches on the women's side, and we briefly mentioned it. The top quarter is Swiatek versus Coco. Now we kind of went into again the head-to-head does not look good and everything, but can I go as far, Steve, as saying the winner of that match will win the title? That would be something for Coco, right? That would be
yeah. I'm not sure I would go along with it for Coco. I think it would be an enormous boost if she upsets Iga after what happened to her in the finals last year, never having beaten her. But I'm not. I would say it's true for certainly true of Swiatek. And I expect her to beat Coco. I expect her to take the title, but I wouldn't be as sure of Coco, but boy, what a lift she would get if she managed to produce that upset.
I want to go down to the bottom quarter too, because to me, it's really, really intriguing. Alina Svitolina, right? Mom, I'm married to Gael Monfils. She plays Sabalenka. By the way, Sabalenka beat Sloane Stephens. We've given Sloane, we've had our discussions about Sloane in the past. She had a good run. Yeah, she lost 7-6, 6-4. What was she down 5-0 in the first set against Sabalenka? Climbed all the way back to 5-5.
Yeah.
She lost 7-6, 6-4. But shout out to Sloane. It looked like she enjoyed being on court. There's been a lot of times recently that she hasn't seemed like happy being on the court. So shout out.
Well, but also, David, in addition to that, she felt a bit humiliated when she was down love 5 in that first set. And then you saw her morale improving significantly game by game, and she's fighting off set points at 2-5 and 4-5, and did such a great job, and then put herself in a position in that tiebreak to win it, and lost at 7-5 with a couple of errors at the end that were probably frustrating for her, but then fought hard in the second before losing that one 6-4. So I feel like, yes, it was a good encouraging tournament for Sloane Stephens, and I hope she takes that into Wimbledon, and expect that she will, and have a good run there as well.
Yeah, I agree. Let's hope so. All right, Sabalenka, Svitolina. All right, I mean, is Svitolina going to continue this run here, or does the road end here?
Well, I think it ends, but I'll say this: Svitolina to me has for a long while been a player of great guile and strategic, great court sense, and she makes the most of everything that she has, and she's a very heady player. She knows what she's doing. She's a terrific match player. So I think there are things she will do, to disrupt the rhythm of Sabalenka and prevent and to stop the avalanche, because we know Sabalenka is going to play her the same way she played against Sloane or anybody else. She's going to try to blow her off the court, and in most cases, she succeeds with that strategy. Svitolina, I think, can at least make this interesting. I'm picking Sabalenka in 3 sets.
Okay. Now, I'll ask you this. We talk about the trio so much, and we already said Rybakina, unfortunately, had to withdraw, so she's not part of it. Is this going to be another one of those? We get 2 of the 3 in the final, Swiatek versus Sabalenka, or someone we haven't talked about. She's made a couple Grand Slam finals, hasn't got over the hurdle yet. Ons Jabeur is still in the middle of that field. Can she make a run and win this?
You know, Ons is surprisingly good on clay. I feel like she's a little better on harder grass. I'd love to see it. I don't expect it. I guess I'm looking for the Sabalenka final against Swiatek. But Ons, you know, Ons has been in good form. You know, she's going to play Haddad Maia in the quarters, and then she would have to beat Swiatek just to get to that meeting with potentially with Sabalenka in the final. It's a tall order for her on clay, but if she pulled it off, good for her. I mean, you know, we keep waiting for her to win her first major. It's going to happen soon. I don't think it'll be here, but I'd love it. I'd love to see it happen.
Well, I'm glad we recorded tonight because there's some enticing quarterfinal matches. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to work on editing this and getting this out tonight before the first of the quarters start tomorrow morning. Again, we're recording this on Monday night. We got a heck of a finish coming up here, Steve.
Yeah, we do. We do. I have a feeling that no matter what happens the rest of the tournament, that we're going to be talking quite a bit in our next podcast on a week from tonight about the Djokovic-Alcaraz semifinal. That's going to end up being the golden moment of the tournament, the match that everybody will remember. Somehow I feel it will surpass the final or surpass anything that happens among the women as well. That's just a guess. It's a hunch, but I'm expecting them to produce a blockbuster.
Well, let's see. I hope I don't text you late tomorrow and be like, Stefanos Tsitsipas just got in the way of what you just said. So we'll see. There's so many good matchups. Steve, thank you for your time. And we're all looking forward to the last 3 rounds of this tournament. So many good matches.
Yeah, thanks, David. I enjoyed it.